There's a strange paradox at the heart of modern power. The strongest nations today, the wealthiest, the most technologically advanced, the most influential, are also the ones that owe the most. The United States, the world's financial superpower, carries a national debt measured in the tens of trillions of dollars. Japan, one of the world's most stable economies, owes more than twice its entire GDP. Europe's great powers, from France to Italy, run on borrowed money. And yet, none of them collapse. None of them fall the way ancient empires once did under the weight of unpaid tribute or failing treasuries. Instead, their debt becomes the very engine that keeps their power alive. Modern empires, it turns out, are not built on gold, territory, or armies. They're built on debt. And to understand why, we must step back, far into history, to the moment civilization first discovered that money you don't have can be even more powerful than money you do. Long before skyscrapers and stock exchanges, ancient kingdoms learned a simple truth. Wealth isn't just what you own. It's what others owe you. The earliest recorded debts appear in Mesopotamia, carved into clay tablets. Farmers borrowed grain before harvest. Traders borrowed silver before voyages. Cities borrowed resources to fund temples and armies. Debt created movement. Movement created trade. Trade created power. But these early systems came with limits. Debt was personal, tied to land, family, or physical goods. When empires grew too large, their debts grew too risky. The fall of Babylon, Assyria, and even Rome was accelerated by the same old pattern. Borrow too much, grow too fast, collapse under the weight. For centuries, world powers believed debt was dangerous. Then something changed. A new idea emerged, one that would rewrite the logic of global power. It happened in 1694, inside a crowded London coffee house, where a group of merchants proposed a plan that sounded absurd. What if a government could borrow money without pledging land, gold, or royal treasure? What if it could borrow based on the trust of its merchants and citizens? This idea became the Bank of England, the world's first modern central bank. For the first time, a nation didn't need gold to finance its ambitions. It needed credibility, and Britain had plenty. This single innovation transformed a small island into the greatest empire on earth. Because once the British government could borrow endlessly, it could build the world's largest navy, fund global expeditions, develop colonies, finance wars that lasted decades, and outspend every rival without collapsing. Debt, once a dangerous burden, had become a weapon. Without ever using the term, Britain invented the first debt-powered empire. The Industrial Revolution accelerated everything. Factories produced more goods than ever. Railways expanded across continents. Steamships shrank oceans. But all of it required massive capital. Debt became fuel, a way to build the future before the future existed. By the late 19th century, the United States borrowed heavily to build railroads spanning from coast to coast. Germany borrowed to build industrial cities and a powerful military. Japan borrowed to modernize from a feudal society into a rising empire. France and Britain borrowed to maintain global influence. Debt no longer signaled weakness. It signaled ambition. A nation with low debt was not proud. It was idle. A nation with high debt was not reckless. It was expanding. The equation flipped. Power required debt. Debt became power. Both world wars were economic contests as much as military ones. Countries didn't just fight with armies. They fought with credit. In World War II, the United States became the arsenal of democracy because it could. Borrow at scale no other nation could match. The U.S. issued war bonds. Factories ran 24 hours. Money flowed like water. Debt didn't just support the war. Debt won it. And when the war ended, the U.S. emerged as the central creditor of the Western world. Its loans rebuilt Europe and Japan. Its currency became the foundation of global trade. This moment created the modern financial order. The dollar as the world's reserve currency. The IMF and World Bank to manage global lending. A U.S.-led system where credit determined influence. Any country that wanted to develop had to borrow. Any country that wanted to trade needed dollars. And any nation that controlled the flow of dollars controlled the world. Debt had become the bloodstream of global power. Today, the world economy runs on a simple mechanism. Governments borrow money to build infrastructure, fund healthcare, subsidize industries, invest in military power. Central banks create money, not by printing, but by expanding credit, lowering interest rates, and influencing global capital flows. Investors buy government bonds because they're the safest assets in the world. Debt becomes the foundation of stability. The U.S. Treasury market is so large, so reliable, that global finance depends on it. Debt fuels growth. Nations borrow to expand. Investors gain returns. Companies gain stability. Workers gain jobs. Debt is no longer an emergency measure. It is the operating system of modern civilization. The irony is breathtaking. Without debt, the world economy would collapse. With debt, modern empires thrive. In our time, nations don't compete through land grabs or colonial fleets. They compete through borrowing capacity. The United States holds the world's strongest debt because investors trust it most. China finances global influence through massive loans to developing nations. Japan runs the largest public debt in proportion to GDP, yet remains stable because it controls its own currency. Europe maintains influence through the Eurozone's collective borrowing power. Whoever can borrow most cheaply can build most powerfully. Debt becomes a moat, a shield, a strategic advantage. And the countries with the deepest, most liquid debt markets are the ones shaping global politics, trade, and technology. But every engine has a shadow. Some countries borrow not to expand, but to survive, trapped in cycles of repayment, devaluation, and bailout. Emerging economies often face high interest rates, harsh lending conditions, and volatile currencies. Nations from Latin America to Africa to South Asia battle what economists call the debt trap, a situation where loans intended for development turn into anchors pulling them deeper into dependency. The difference between a debt-powered empire and a debt-stricken nation is not the amount borrowed. It's who controls the terms. Modern power isn't about who owes money. It's about who writes the contracts. So why do powerful nations continue borrowing? The answer lies in three fundamental forces. Scale. Modern economies are enormous, and only debt can mobilize trillions quickly enough to respond to crises or fund innovation. Leverage. Debt multiplies capability, allowing governments to build a $10 billion project with just a fraction up front. Trust. Countries like the US and Japan borrow easily because global markets believe they will always repay. This trust becomes a renewable resource, a form of invisible wealth. An empire is not judged by how much it owes. It is judged by how many people want to lend to it. In the ancient world, a kingdom's power was measured in armies, in gold, in land. Today, power is measured in the ability to borrow, spend, and invest at scales unimaginable in the past. Modern empires float on oceans of credit, oceans that move quietly beneath the surface, shaping everything we see. Debt is no longer a flaw in the system. Debt is the system. And until a new form of power is invented, debt will remain the silent architecture of global influence. Because in the modern age, money borrowed wisely can build more than monuments or armies. It builds empires.